Hello. Today I'd like to talk about something that I've talked about in the past on various podcasts and other things, but I don't think I've ever gone over in a single video. So I'll do that now. And that is the history of the various book buying campaigns that the EU movement has had, specifically with Amazon. Now, the reason I am talking about this is because I've seen going around recently a lot of ideas about trying to start another book buying campaign, a targeted book buy of everyone, a bunch of people all going on Amazon and purchasing a book at a certain day on a certain time to boost the sales numbers and, buy it and then gift it to, someone along those lines. And as I've been in the community since the beginning and have been a part of many such um, attempts at doing this. I just wanted to make a video going over the history of these attempts and my experience and how they went. Now, I don't have any images of this because um, a lot of these posts and groups no longer exist, or I no longer have access to. But around 2014 to 2015, we in the EU movement more or less had a ongoing campaign of book buying. That's once a month we would tell everyone that we are going to buy this specific book at this specific time for this purpose of boosting the sales and boosting the numbers on the Amazon bestsellers rankings. And at the time, I was the one who would watch the Amazon bestsellers rankings. I would get snapshots of the before we would all buy it, of the hour that we all bought it, and the hour after we all bought it, or 3 hours, is that's 3 to 4 hours, is that's actually when um, Amazon updates their data, so that I could share it with everyone to show how we did. And quite honestly, every single attempt failed. We did this for about 6 or 7 months from the end of 2014 to 2015, and every time we did it, it wouldn't really we'd maybe boost it up a couple dozen slots, but then it would fall back down, or sometimes it wouldn't boost at all. Sometimes it would go down. It didn't seem like we were having any real effect on it. So we stopped because it just wasn't working. And since then, I've kind of done some digging into maybe why this is. And what I found was, throughout the publishing history, the history of publishing, there is a lot of attempts and several even services that you can find that attempt to basically do what we tried to do in 2014, 2015, but on a much larger scale, where instead of a few dozen to a few hundred people buying it, buying like thousands of books to try to boost the sales. And the publishing um, industry is aware of this. The USA Today and New York Times bestsellings lists are both aware of this, and they have measures within their data to factor in large bulk purchases in a very short amount of time as not really less than legitimate, but kind of flag it and like account for the fact that those might not be real. What they are really looking for is consistent, a gradual and consistent increase or in sales over a much longer time, not a quick spike. And you may be wondering, how does this do with Amazon? Well, that's because Amazon, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but Amazon actually started primarily as an online bookseller in the early 90s. It was very much aware of this problem from the publishing industry. And although I don't have any proof of this, I don't know the algorithm, I've never seen it. I am very confident that its algorithm for calculating the the bestsellers lists also takes into account this. In fact, doing some research, I found from Seller App this statement about their algorithm that's saying that it tries to it has predictive factors as well to analyze the future sales of the product too, and meaning you can't really expect that your sales to go up with a sudden influx in sales. What that basically means is that it's it's not counting averages in sales for the bestsellers list. It's not just taking the most recent data point and basing its projections for the sales report off of that. It's actually still remembering all of the data points that came before it. So if, let's say, it's only going back 10 cycles of 4 hours, right? That's all it factors in. And in the 10 cycles, a book is only averaging 20 to 30 purchases, and then all of a sudden it gets 1,000 purchases in like the most recent one. It's still going to remember the 9 other instances of time when it only had 30. So its predictive model is going to flag that 1,000 as an outlier and say, unless that happens more or consistently, or that number goes up, it expects the very next one to probably be a 30 again. So the ranking isn't actually going to increase. It's going to see the big spike, see that before the big spike there was almost no activity, and assume that no other activity is going to happen, unless after that big spike there's another big spike in the next 3 to 4 hour window and another big spike in the next 3 or 4. That's how it's going to that's how it knows, okay, this is real and it's actually rising. To put that visually, this, if you take the y-axis as how many books are selling and the x-axis is how many hours have passed in the hour windows, the 3 to 4 hour windows that Amazon uses to updating its site, this is not going to move the needle. This is consistent increasing, or even just consistent growth over time, where it's actually building on itself. That is what's actually going to move the numbers. And as a few case studies and examples, we can use in 2021 when Heart of the Jedi had its amazing run, moving all the way up to number 3 on the science fiction adventures bestsellers charts on about noon on May 4th, and 26th on overall books, again on May 4th, during the incredible 2 weeks that was Heart of the Jedi. This, although I don't have the sales numbers over time, it's indicative of how these bestsellers charts work, because we found out about this on the 30th, and word kind of spread. We tried to get the word out there, but even with us signal boosting it, it still spread slowly. It was kind of an internal thing of those in the movements, and then it started to branch out into other areas, and the word got out slowly over time. This was days of building that brought us to it peaking at 26th in books and 3rd in science fiction adventures. So that's really impressive for Heart of the Jedi to get this far. But the other thing about the Amazon bestsellers list is that it is a competition. Ultimately, it is competing against everything else that is charting at the time. And sometimes you can just run up into a gauntlet. You'll notice that in this screenshot, it's sandwiched between Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, beating out to the novel, but losing to the ebook and the audiobook version of it. Well, what is Andy Weir's Hail Mary? A book that before I started putting this data back in 2021, I'd never heard of. I've not read it, but I did some research on it as well. And what I found was this was very stiff competition for Heart of the Jedi to go up against. Released May 4th, 2021, though as Amazon has pre-orders, it was available on the site for weeks and months prior, which is how it had its own build-up up to what it eventually peaked out as. It debuted on the New York Times bestsellers list at number 3, was on it for over 9 weeks, and eventually hit the number 1 spot in audio fiction in 2022, almost a year later. It received several awards, both in 2021 and 2022, and was even a finalist for Best Novel for 2022 in the Hugo Awards. There were, with the benefit of hindsight, Heart of the Jedi was not going to beat Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, anytime, and no book that came out around that year probably could have, right? It hit a wall. It hit a wall that it could not surmount, and thus it never got the number one ranking in its own category, because there was just something that was bigger than it. And when you're dealing with bestsellers rankings, you're just going to run into a wall sometimes. And it's very hard to predict, again, because we didn't know when Heart of the Jedi was going to come out. It just kind of came out, and we realized it was out, and we all started buying it. And it just so happens that at the same time it was having a legendary run, there was also a Hugo Award finalist that was released right around its peak. That's just how it goes sometimes. But we do have another more recent case study in how the Amazon bestsellers list works. And that's in 2024 with the Supernatural Encounters that are now on Amazon. This has seen quite a bit of fanfare, not quite to the level that we saw with Heart of the Jedi, which is to be expected. Supernatural Encounters, unfortunately enough, has its own tumultuous history and is, let's just say, not as widely accepted as Heart of the Jedi was. But even still, thanks to Brennan Quinlan Voss, we do have some numbers on its sales data, and it has done fairly well for itself on the Amazon bestsellers charts. Again, starting on the 2nd of February and eventually peaking out on the 4th of February. Again, through consistent purchasing over the course of days, not one spike, but of many people, word of mouth slowly kind of building it. It was able to amass its peak and is now starting to fall off, though if you'll notice, it is kind of having a rebound. And at the time of recording this, which is at noon Pacific on the 10th of February. So maybe it'll come back, but again, it goes to show that the way historically that we've been successful at getting things to chart on the list isn't with a single one-off purchase. Everyone purchased this book at this time and then be done with it. It's been more organic. It's been a much slower burn. I don't think, and this is my main point of making this video, was to kind of illustrate this, that I don't think Heart of the Jedi or even Supernatural Encounters can be faked. I don't think it's something that we can manufacture or replicate with a mass purchasing campaign. This isn't to say that it's not a bad idea, or even to discourage coming up with ideas using for ways we can campaign for the EU using the Amazon bestsellers chart. I just think that the idea of having us force a book through the Amazon bestsellers charts in a targeted book buy isn't something that is feasible or possible. And if anyone wants to try it, you're more than go ahead. Um, let us know how it goes. But I just think, in my experience, it's not going to do what you think it will. But that is all. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, take care.